Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we are going to learn about for loops. So last week we did a while loop and we learned how to create a do while loop. Now we want a loop that will go for a specific amount of intervals, right? We want to iterate through the loop a very specific amount. And that's what for loops are great for. So if we take a look here, this is the way a for loop is structured. You start with the keyword for, and then inside the parentheses, we have basically a set of arguments. Now these arguments are separated by this semicolon here. So we have the semicolon and we have another semicolon. There are three statements within this for loop argument set. Okay. The first statement is called the iterator. The iterator. It's basically a variable that we use to determine what iteration of the loop we're on currently. Usually this is int I equals 0. Almost every for loop you create, it's going to be int I equals 0. That just creates the iterator. That just means that we're going to start at the 0 iteration, and that's where we're going to begin. Then in the next instruction, or in the next argument, that's where we have our comparison. So while I is less than 5. Then in the third, we are going to tell it how much to increase by every time we loop. So essentially this for loop is just a more, deliberate while loop, right? So int I equals 0, then we do our comparison, and then we tell our iterator how much to increase every iteration of the loop. So this is going to continue to output the value of I onto the screen until I is no longer less than 5. Pretty cool. Let's actually make it happen. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create a new REPL. It'll be C#. I'm going to call it for loops practice. Okay, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Set my font size. Okay. All right, I'm going to organize my brackets here a bit. Okay. So with the for loop, we're going to create a for. Now the first part, remember that first part is the iterator. So it's going to be int I equals 0. We're going to start at 0 for the first iteration of our loop. Now while I is less than 5, we will continue to iterate, and then we will increase I by 1 every time we run the loop. And so inside we're going to console.writeLine the value of I, whatever I is at the moment. So this for loop should output some numbers onto our screen. Let's take a look. There we go. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that makes sense. So let's step through this logically. So the first iteration, I is 0. So it's going to output 0 to the screen. Then the next iteration, I is 1. 1 is less than 5. So it's going to output 1 to the screen. And then it's going to increase 1 by 1. So then the next iteration, I is 2. 2 is still less than 5. So we're going to output 2 onto the screen, so on and so forth. Now, you may be thinking, okay, so that's basically, the same as a while loop. Why would we ever use a for loop in this way? Well, let's talk about arrays. Let's add an array. I'm going to create a string array, and I'm going to call this fruits. Set it equal to, let's say, apples, bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A. Yeah. It's hard to spell bananas. I'm going to say oranges. Okay. So now I have an array of fruits. So I can set the integer, or the iterator can stay I equals 0. And we can say, while I is less than fruits dot length, while I is less than fruits dot length, the length of the fruits array. And instead of outputting just I, we can say fruits I. Now, think about what we're doing here. We have an iterator set to 0 at the beginning. When I equals 0, I is less than fruits length, so we're going to output something onto the screen. And what we're going to output is fruits and then whatever the iterator is. So the first iteration is going to be 0, which is going to output this index onto the screen, apples. And then so on and so forth until we're done with the array. This is why for loops are so incredibly great. I love using for loops with arrays because it's so easy to tell if, it's easy to output every single index of your array using a for loop. Let's go ahead and run it. And we have apples, oranges, or apples, bananas, and oranges. It's that easy. And we can have an array as big as we want. We can add more to it. Spaghetti. I don't know if that's how you spell spaghetti, but spaghetti is a fruit now. And then when we run it, it'll still output spaghetti because it's set to the length of our array and not a specific number. And we're always starting at the beginning. For loops are awesome. Now, go take your quiz, and then when you're done, I will meet you in the categories assignment, and I will teach you how to use this concept to create a really fun game. Alrighty, see you there.